Well, all of you that know Grandpa know that Grandpa does things different once in a while. So I've got something different again for you today. It's not going to be a children's book. It's going to be a poem. Grandpa doesn't read very many poems. I know some of the children's books rhyme like they're poems, I guess. But anyway, this one here is a little bit of a story behind it. I retired back midsummer, and I've been in the process. You know, the weather's turning cold and bad here in the Northwest and stuff, and so I've been cleaning up my old office and stuff, my home office, and kind of making it more of a home office rather than a work office. And anyway, I'm kind of coming across different things and stuff. It's kind of interesting as I go. And one of the things I came across, I used to clip out articles out of magazines and stuff a long time ago, and I'd save them. I'd save them in photo albums and things like that. And I come across this one, and it's a poem that I've always liked. And it's kind of a fun poem. And if you remember there used to be an old poem called Casey at the Bat. And anyway, it was a good poem, kind of long and stuff, nothing. But someone here, his name is Cliff, and I'll spell the last name. I think it's called Hauptman, Hauptman. Anyway, he took that Casey at the Bat and turned it into Casey at the Bass Tournament. And anyway, it's a good poem. I looked everywhere I could on the internet, and I couldn't find any mention of it anywhere. This came out of a magazine called Sports Afield back in 1986, and I clipped it out, and I've been hanging on to it for all those years. And I guess that's 24 years, or maybe more than that, 34 years maybe. Anyway. I'll read it here for you and stuff, and what I'm going to do is I scan the pictures in, and I'll just have those pictures coming down on the text and stuff as I read. So anyway, I hope it turns out okay, and I hope I do it okay here and stuff, and it comes out okay. So anyway, here we go. Casey at the Bass Tournament, a poem by Cliff Hauptman, with apologies to Ernest Lawrence Thayer. This is out of Sports Afield, June 1986. It looked extremely choppy out on Lucre Lake that day. The anglers were all hoping that the wind would die away. All week, the wretched gale had blown and kept the fishing down, and now the final day determined who would win the crown. Last year the fishing had been great. It had a record haul. This year on Lucre Lake, so far, there'd been no catch at all. 200 pros had fished all week. 10,000 lures were cast, and 7 days of tournament had come down to the last. The greatest in the land were there, the top among the pros. Some wrote for outdoor magazines and hosted TV shows. Some owned their own lure companies, and all were deemed world class, but none could better Casey when it came to catching bass. For 5 years running, Casey had displayed his winning style. He'd entered every tournament and won each by a mile. And not a person in the crowd, despite the flop so far, had any doubts that Casey, once again, would be the star. But time was running out, despite the wind and leaden sky, and still the $40,000 was anybody's prize. Nobody led, nobody lagged. All entries stood the same, and sudden death determined who at last would win the fame. Into his orange-sparkled bass boat Cassie stepped with grace, which stretched first he flashed a V, a smile, oh, spread his face. 10,000 fans rose up as one and chored, "Hip hooray!" 200 boats roared off the line and things got underway. North winds still punched the battered lake and capped the waves in white. Not one contestant dared to let the shore get out of sight. And so upon that final day, the crowd gained quite a treat, for everyone could watch how each pro fared right from his seat. Yet on and on the cruel wind blew, despite each angler's wish, and so it was that 6 hours hence not one had seen a fish. Then, as in a miracle, the gaze eased just a bit, and in an hour, with one to go, the wind just up and quit. The sun came out and poured its blessed warmth upon the crowd, and soon one pro out on the lake was heard to shout aloud. The first fish of the week had struck the lure of Marty Sloan, a pro from up near Louisville, a virtual unknown. 10,000 people stood aghast at what the Lord had wronged, as 20,000 eyes beheld the keeper Sloan had caught. With only minutes left to go before the final bell, it looked like Casey's chances had been blasted all to hell. But out upon the placid lake, great Casey cupped his hands, and soon his deep, familiar voice was carried to the stands. It echoed off the far-off hills. Around the lake it spread, and each fan breathed a sigh of hope. "Don't worry," Casey said. Then, just as Casey's voice had died away upon the lake, the crowd could see that once again Sloan's rod began to quake. A second bass was quickly tamed and guided to the net. But mighty Casey yelled once more, "It isn't over yet." The 2 bass Marty Sloan had caught were barely keeping size, and so it stood that one good bass could take away the prize. 15 minutes still remained before the clock ran out, and all heads snapped towards Casey as they heard his joyous shout. A bend had doubled Casey's rod. His reel began to whine. There was no doubt the winning fish was there on Casey's line. Yet after several minutes' fight, the fish had barely tired, and Casey had to land the thing before the clock expired. 5 minutes left. Time's running out. The shoreline masses cried. "No problem," Casey, self-assured and confident, replied. They saw him strain against the rod. They saw his muscles tense. They knew that once he landed it, the fish would prove immense. The sparkle showed in Casey's eyes. They seemed to blaze and burn. And now the crowd can see the fight begin to take a turn. For Casey now is gaining line. The scales begin to tip. With seconds left, he grabbed the struggling monster by the lip. Oh, somewhere on a turny trail, and fishing still is fun, the bass are biting somewhere, and somewhere shines the sun. And somewhere men are winning. Of this there's little doubt. But Marty Sloan won that one. Mighty Casey caught a trout. As I always say, there you have it. Mighty Casey caught a trout at a bass tournament, so he didn't win. It must have been a good trip. Anyway, you had dinner that night, so you never lose. I once read a book. It's called "I Never Got Skunked." It was written by a newspaper reporter, sports reporter up here in the Northwest, and he talked about going fishing every month of the year and catching fish. I think it was actually catching salmon, but he went all over the place and stuff. But it's a lot of truth in that. You never get skunked when you go fishing, even when you don't catch anything. It's still fun. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the foam, and I hope that Cliff, if you see this, I hope you approve of it and stuff, and don't get too mad at me. I couldn't find it anywhere published or online or nothing, so I'm hoping it's okay. Anyway, I wish you all good luck with your fishing, and I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.